Happy Devil's Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 198, titled Devils Really Enjoy Break. Yeah, they're really enjoying it right now as we're streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network, coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios in North Jersey and South Jersey. Undisclosed locations, my friends. I'm here with pucksandpitchforks.com editor-in-chief Nick Villano. I'm your host, Sam Wu. Nick, what a podcast last week with Adam Hamway. And now we've got Byron Bader.
You forgot about Mr. Josh Youngren of Evolving Wild.
His name was slipping my head, and I was thinking, is it Micah McCurdy? That name was in my head, but I forgot that.
Are you trying to tell me you want Micah back on?
I think they're all good. I think these are all great guests. Want to talk to some puck? I mean, right now, it's been kind of a slow news day. Things going on around the league. All-Stars coming up. Jack Hughes down in South Florida. Devils are really enjoying the break out in Mexico, right?
Mm. They're having a good old time with a good buddy of theirs. You heard the rumor. You know who they're with.
Yeah. What, the Timo Meyer rumor?
Is it Timo time?
Yeah.
Hey, he just has to jump back on the same plane as Nico and who is it with Tatar and Siegenthaler, right?
Yeah. I mean, hey.
Easy peasy.
Hey, there's no tampering over there. Players can go mingle amongst themselves, right? They can always, let's call it, I don't know what the proper term is, but networking. They're networking right now in Mexico, and, it's, been kind of a slow day. I mean, when you're watching, actually looking on Instagram and you're looking at all these social media pages, Nick, you're kind of like, it's very nice seeing Jesper Bratt having his feet up, looking at the scenery around him.
Yeah, he's taking the scenic route, as we like to call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, listen, it's a well-earned break. The Devils are in a good spot right now, I think. January is a weird one, right? You had a lot of wins. I think they go 9-2-2 in January or something like that. Something like that. I think that was what it was, 9-2-2. But did you really feel good about any of them? It definitely was November.
They were able to – November they dominated. I think part of it was teams were not ready for the Devils. Then in December they kind of got a blueprint out how to beat the Devils. But I think January was one of those months where the reason why I'm positive is the Devils didn't particularly played well like they did in November, but they found ways to win. Yeah. And I think that's a lost art form that, in the analytics world, trying to do the impossible, the comebacks, and leading your team consistently coming back from a 1 or 2 goal or even 3 goal deficit is actually pretty impressive. Do I want to win games like that for the rest of the way of the season? No. But at least we're seeing this chapter of the New Jersey Devils in January that they're finding ways to win and they're proving that they can.
Yeah, and I'm a big momentum guy. I believe in momentum, and I think none of these games matter as long as you're in the playoffs.
Yep.
Just truthfully, if you go into the playoffs kind of moseying, you're going to lose. If you go into the playoffs hot, you're going to win. And it's listen, that's not an exact science. Like, the better team does usually win, but there's a lot of conversations about whether the Pucks and Pitchforks team was talking about whether Devils would have any chance against Carolina. I'm like, that's like a weird statement to say. Carolina's really good. Don't get us wrong, but we just beat them. And I know Carolina, and here's the thing about Carolina. So I believe it was the last game where the Devils won 5-3. I think it was the game Dawson Mercer had a really good game, wasn't it? Am I remember that correctly? Either way,
game?
whatever happened. They beat them 5-3. Carolina beat the Devils in chances, like 80-50. It was ridiculous. But out of those 80 chances, 9 were of the high danger variety. And usually it's about 25 to 30% are in that high danger variety. Mm-hmm. To have about 10% from the Hurricanes, it just showed that they weren't able to get to those high danger areas. Meanwhile, the Devils had 8 out of those 40 were of the high danger variety. So that's kind of where the differences are. And, you know, it all depends on what number you're looking at. If you look at Corsi, yeah, you're thinking that the Devils aren't in the same league as the Carolina Hurricanes. If you're looking at high danger chances, which I like to look at a lot more, I'd rather see a team win the high danger chances race than the chances race. I get it. You got to throw the puck at the net. Sometimes magic happens, and it does for the Devils sometimes, but they've been better at keeping people away from those high danger areas, even though the defense has had some rough nights. You know, we saw it against Nashville, rough night. That was bad. I want to see what this team does with Marino back. You know, Marino hasn't been in the lineup for over a month now, right? And he was really the glue to this defense in that November stretch. And what the Devils were doing was they were suppressing chances. And that was how they were winning games. The suppressed chances turned into offense. You always hear that the best defense is a good offense, but this was the opposite. A good defense was facilitating an offense. So I think that's what you're going to get when Marino comes back.
Yeah, Dennis says in the YouTube Live, Carolina game is weird. Jonas's goal, allowed 2 shorties. Dawson Mercer has a memorable night. Mm-hmm. We love this win. So
yeah, I mean, it was an ugly night. It was an ugly night that the Devils won, and you're gonna have to win ugly sometimes.
Yeah,
and I know it's a trope. I know it's a misnomer, but it's true. You know, misnomers can be true. It's a misdirect, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of weird adjectives you can use for that game, but I just think it's a game that tells you exactly how the Devils could win in May and June. And I do think this team, listen, am I going to tell you that I'm going to be floored if this team loses in the second round? No. I really hope they win the first round, especially if it's against the Rangers. You got to beat the Rangers. You can't let the Rangers send you home. But you know, if you face Pittsburgh in the first round, you know, that's a hard one. They got the experience. They have a lot going for them. And you would have to imagine if they were moving up the standings that they were really hot in the second half of the season. Washington is a team that the Devils had a lot of struggles against. They could still move themselves up into the standings in that third spot. A lot can happen. The Devils could move down. The Devils could move up. They could be the first seed. You know, there's a lot that can happen between now and the end of the season. You know, and there's also the possibility they make a trade. And that's something we're going to talk about with Byron Bader. He's, you know, an analytics dynamo, and I'm curious to see his thoughts because the scuttlebutt, Elliot Friedman said it. A couple other insiders have said Timo Meier. They've used the name specifically, and it makes a lot of sense. He's a good fit for the Devils. He's somebody who can really do something. And I want to talk to Byron about it. And Sam, is Byron on?
Yeah, Byron's on, creator of Hockey Prospecting. You can find him on Twitter at Byron M. Bader. Byron, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing great, Byron. So good. So glad you could come back on the podcast, talk to us about the numbers. We love talking on the numbers with you.
Yeah, the numbers are the best. I mean, obviously, I love the numbers.
You know, math is king, and the math is in the Devils' favor in a lot of ways, in the standings, the point totals. But I've already brought up Timo Meier, so I'm going to skip right to that question. I want to kind of jump into his fit, whether he's somebody who the Devils should go all in for. So that's the rumor. Timo Meier to the Devils Let me ask you, what do you think of that fit? Do you think it's something the Devils should go all in for, give them the asking price that they want?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think he's basically perfect for them. He's a winger. He's got some good size. His underlying numbers are pretty good. And, he's also, I mean, from the hockey prospecting side, he's one of these stars that you're kind of looking for. And, the Devils right now, which is basically all kind of unfolded this year, they went from basically having no stars a few years ago. Then they got brought in Dougie Hamilton. That gave them one. And then sort of throughout this season alone, they've evolved to now have 4 stars on their team with Hughes and Bratt and Hischier as well. So then, Meyer kind of really rounds that out and he gives them 5, which is basically when you look at the data and how many teams, that tend to go all the way or go to cup finals and stuff, they tend to have basically like at least 4 stars, and 5 stars kind of puts them over the top. So that would be sort of right in that wheelhouse. So I think he would be perfect. I mean, I think he would slot right in there. He could play anywhere on the top 2 lines, basically. My only thoughts, I guess, from, considering it is what it's going to cost. Is it going to cost a big piece out that is already on the team, like a Mercer type thing, or is it going to be maybe a piece that, hasn't arrived yet but could be substantially good, like a Nemec type thing? I don't know if maybe they can kind of get around that by just using draft picks and kind of B or A- level prospects. So that would be the big thing. And then the other thing is how much his next contract is going to be. I mean, is it going to be a pure rental thing with him, or can you actually get him signed? Because that could be a little bit tricky, but I mean, you do have a lot of your sort of big guns tied up to pretty nice deals for the next several years. So maybe you could fit him in, but that would be, the other determining factor. But I think he'd be awesome with the Devils. I think he'd be perfect.
So let me ask you this. Would you pull the trigger on Nemec or Mercer? You don't have to answer. You brought them up, so I had to ask.
Yeah, no, like I guess I probably would if it didn't cost much more than that, I guess. Like if it was kind of like, Nemec or Mercer like a second or something like that, maybe. I would probably prefer to maybe include like Holtz in the deal, or obviously Luke Hughes isn't going anywhere. Probably something like that. I mean, I probably would do it, but if they're looking for a first on top of that and then another prospect, then that starts to become a little bit too expensive for me. But it depends what it looks like, I guess. But you don't want to take away from a great team already, or a plus prospect like Nemec. If you can't, like if you can get around it, then I'd use something else. But be curious how they go with it, anyways.
So I want to ask about Mercer specifically, just because he's been a topic of argument, to be honest, between Devils fans, because there's some Devils fans who think he's untouchable. I'm one of them. I wouldn't trade Mercer. I would wait it out, because there are other pieces that the Devils have. It's not like Toronto, who has pretty much Niles. Matthew Nyes is like the piece, and then everything else is just kind of a far drop off. The Devils have a lot of pieces. You mentioned Holtz, and they have like Graham Clark. That we don't have to list them, but there's a lot of pieces that the Devils could offer. But then you look at the numbers, and some of the underlyings for Mercer are not great. Some of them are really great. It honestly kind of depends on like where you look. You have one of these sites that goes through these numbers and kind of analyzes players. What is your analysis of Mercer? What do you think he is, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly like how you kind of put it. It's kind of, good and bad. Like he's kind of, again, my website is looking for these players that are going to turn into these offensive stars later on. So that's what it's kind of trying to project. And Mercer's kind of right in that sort of, 50-50 chance of becoming a star, basically. He's at about a 40% chance now through his full sort of 5-year track, which is, I mean, that's still in like the, 90th percentile in terms of star percentages, because not most players don't turn into stars, right? So, I mean, that's still a big piece that in most worlds, you don't want to trade that away. But, I mean, if you're getting a star back in Meyer the other way, then maybe you dangle it. But I mean, he's right in that kind of 50-50 chance. Is he going to be a center and playing, 3C behind the big two, or is he going to be a top 6 forward? That's probably going to, have a big factor in if he's going to turn into one of these stars. But yeah, he's, like you said, he's kind of, he's not bad in terms of the underlying numbers, but not great. But he's also, he just turned 21 basically. So, I mean, there's lots of runway there to sort of improve. And he's been in the NHL for 2 years now. So, yeah, I mean, I would not trade him in basically any world. But, yeah, I don't know. In this particular instance where you could add like a legitimate established star and maybe it carries you to something substantial in the playoffs, I don't know. It's really tough to say. But, he looks like he could – if he's not a star, he probably levels off as like a 50, 60-point guy, which is still really reasonable. And, if you get that out of a 3C or a guy who plays kind of on the wing sometimes in sort of the top two lines, then, yeah, I mean, you got to hang on to that in most cases, but it depends which way they want to go with it.
And that's the thing about I love Mercer. I love his effort. I think he has a lot of intangibles that you can't teach, and I'm always looking for people who have that. It's also why I really like Holtz, because I don't think you can teach his level of shot, but the problem is fit in the system, and it just seems like that's a major issue right there is how does Holtz fit into the future if they're not going to change the system. The system is working. So that's where I'm at with Holtz. I really wouldn't want to trade him, but we're talking about Timo Meier, a player who's of a different stature. We're not talking about even like a Tarasenko who's on, he's a rental or a, Horvat who just got traded to the Islanders. Those are completely different scenarios because they're on the last year of their deal. The Meier situation, even with that $10 million qualifying offer, which the Devils would have to match in the offseason for those who don't know. So he's basically guaranteed a $10 million salary next season unless he negotiates something else. So even with that, I think that you got to pay to get, and I think Meier is that piece. I do want to pivot because, I wanted to start with Jack Hughes' conversation. We kind of got sidetracked by Meier because that's what's taking over the conversation with the Devils lately. But Jack Hughes is impossible to not talk about. He's a 30-goal scorer already. He has 60 points already. He's obviously, you said he jumped into the star status this year for you, and I am assuming he's only going to keep growing. That has a lot of people talking about the Hart Trophy, the MVP race. And for a while there, it looked like it was Connor McDavid and everybody else, but it sounds like everybody else is kind of closing the gap there, even though he's got a substantial points lead. In your opinion, do you hold Jack Hughes' season in that esteem? Is he kind of a Hart Trophy candidate for you?
I mean, me personally, obviously, I'm a massive Jack Hughes fan. I talk about him. Probably half my tweets are about Jack Hughes. He's one of my favorite new players in the league. So, I mean, I'm a massive fan of him. I love just watching him and just watching, his transition game and him burning up the ice and making plays and stuff. And when you look at, like, his underlying numbers are all, like, fantastic. Like, no matter what site you go to, like, he's right up there in, like, the 99th percentile type thing. Like, I was looking on Evolving Hockey today, and I think he's, like, in terms of, like, his WAR or SPAR or whatever metric you want to use there, he was like the second or third best player in the whole chart. You could kind of see there was, one or two players above him. I think maybe Mark Stone was one of them, but he's right up there. But in terms of the Hart Trophy, do I actually think he'll win it? Probably not. And that's just because of how the Hart Trophy goes. It's not anything, I guess, against what he's doing this season. Like, I think he's like, 7th or 8th in scoring or something right now. But if you look at what happens with the Hart Trophy and who normally wins it, I mean, looking back like the last 15 or so years, almost every time it goes to the one who registers the most points. I think it's like 11 or 12 out of the last 15 seasons type thing. And then, or last 17 seasons when I was looking back at it. And then if it's not, the person who's leading in points, which is Connor McDavid, who might register 150 points for the first time since I think 1996 when Mario did it. So, I mean, that Hart Trophy, it loves to be attracted to some sort of one-off crazy event, and that, McDavid doing that is probably going to seal it for him. And then the other cases, it basically goes to the leading goal scorer, and it's sort of this, really high goal total again. Ovechkin's won it a couple times when he's had like goal totals in the mid 50s, and then Matthews won it last year when he got 60 goals for the first time in 25 years, or no, I guess since Stamkos did it. So that's a pretty rare event. So when you look at it, it often just goes to that person right at the top of the pile, which is going to be McDavid. So Hughes probably would have to leapfrog quite a few people. Really the only case where it went outside of that was actually Taylor Hall in 2018 when he, drug that Devils team to the playoffs. But he was actually, I think, like fourth or fifth in scoring that year, and he actually won it. But every other year it tends to go to, basically the leader of the pack. So I would love if he won it. I think he's amazing. And yeah, like everything for him is off the charts, and he's only 22 or so, just amazing. But I think it's going to go to McDavid just because he's going to probably put up 150 or 160 points, which, that's just sealed the deal right there. So
yeah, the one thing that was, and the thing we forget about that Taylor Hall season is it was the first season in I don't know how long, but it was the first season where nobody had 100 points. Nobody in the league had 100 points that year. So I think that really helped Hall's case because there wasn't a McDavid. McDavid had a great season, but I think he had like 97 or 98 points or something like that. And Taylor Hall had 93 on a team that he dragged to the playoffs, like you said. And I think Nico Hischier was second on the team with like 60 points, like 58 points. So, I think that just a lot of things went right for Taylor Hall to win the MVP. And good for him. He had his best season and at a season where the MVP could be stolen, and he went and stole it. So, the first Hart Trophy winner in Devils history, and Jack Hughes trying to be the second, but I think you're right. I agree with you on all your points about Connor McDavid because, and again, this isn't taking anything away from McDavid. Like he's doing his best. I'm gonna drag this team to the playoffs by myself. Routine, right? Like he still doesn't have a goalie. They just spent $25 million on Jack Campbell, and they still don't have a goalie. They have a rookie in net. So it's definitely a very interesting situation. Speaking of goalies, I believe Stuart Skinner is an All-Star representative. It's a very strange year for All-Stars. What's your thought of the All-Star, just in general? Do you like the current format, the 3-on-3 with just a few people going? Is there anything you would change? Start with, do you like the current format?
Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of the All-Star game. I never have been, even when I was like a little kid. It's always, right in the middle of the season, it's almost like, you just want to get through the All-Star game and then get back to the season type thing. Like I've been like that since I was 10 years old. But it's fun to watch, and especially now that I have kids and stuff, you watch the skills competition and that stuff. So I think in terms of what it is, I think it's better than, what it was before when it was kind of like the 5-on-5 format, and then they tried like the Euros versus the North Americans, and that wasn't very fun either. Like I think the 3-on-3, and you kind of have the different games, and then, they play the winner plays the winner at the end. I think it's a fun format that sort of gets you into it, leads to lots of goals. I'm not sure there's much you can really improve on it. I think just in general, the All-Star game is just kind of, the regular NHL season is just so much better than the All-Star game. But that's my 2 cents anyways. Yeah.
So, do you think that maybe that this is where maybe the World Cup of Hockey could work? I know they're trying to figure out how that could work. This could be a cool place for it.
Yeah, like instead they just do like a World Cup of Hockey. I think that would be great. Like something that the players really want to go to and don't, schedule their injuries around, and they're very engaged to be a part of it. I think that would be awesome, but I don't know if that would I don't know if you could squeeze that into like a mid-season type thing, or if it would be too long of a tournament and then it's too long of a break. But yeah, that might be an interesting format as well.
I'm just thinking because they did an Olympic break for so long, and they'd figure the schedule out. Why not just do it every year, and then on non-Olympic years, this is just me thinking off the top of my head. I didn't, just trying to see. Maybe I'll write about it. Maybe I don't know. We'll see. This is something that's I'm making up as we go along. Before I let you go, I just want to know real quick, what was your thoughts on that Islanders trade?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. It was, you know, like
Lou
the
being Lou.
the first thing is like, yeah, like the Islanders should not be the team doing that trade. Like they beyond, Barzell and now Noah Dobson, like they don't have that star power that you need to be a contender. Like I've written about this quite a bit. And when you look at teams that won the Stanley Cup, they almost always, just like I spoke about a couple of minutes ago with the Devils and Timo Meier putting them over the edge, they almost always have a ton of stars, the team that wins the cup. And even if you look at the ones that go far and make it to the finals, the ones that have no stars or very few stars, like the Islanders would be, they never win at the thing anyways. Like they, even if they get to the end, they always lose. So I mean, that is exactly the Islanders. So they're kind of this, they're not really a contender, but maybe they think they are. So they're the one that makes this deal, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then in terms of the players that Vancouver got back, they got Beauvillier, who's, in his mid-20s now. He's a decent player. Atu Ratti, who, he had a nice season last year, and then this year he's kind of figuring out his way in the AHL. But when you look at my data and you look at players that look like that, they don't often turn into something really substantial like these stars that we're looking for. So, you're probably not getting a ton there, and maybe you get a middle sixer that is able to generate 40 or 50 points, but that's kind of like the ceiling there. So not like they got like a stud prospect there, and then they got the first, which, will probably be somewhere in the late teens, I would guess. So I don't know. It's kind of, it's I guess like lose on both sides, because it's like, why are the Islanders making this deal? And then Vancouver doesn't end up with like a bounty, or they don't. I love it when you make these trades and you kind of steal like that really awesome looking prospect from the other team that's like just waiting to pop. That's kind of not what they got here. So it's kind of, yeah, I don't know. I think, I read online that they basically got this deal and they didn't even shop it around. They just took the first deal. Like, I wonder what else they could have gotten, because, they probably could have done a little bit better and actually traded him to a team that might make the playoffs and do some damage. So it was kind of interesting. It was kind of just like, why is this happening? Why did this deal happen between these two teams?
The funny thing is, if the Islanders start losing and then they trade him and get a bigger return than the Vancouver did, that would be funny. I would laugh at that.
That would be actually awesome. That would be hilarious if that's what transpired. But I'm curious. I'm curious how it goes. Like I don't know what Lou's thinking on this one. If that's his move, if he's like, we're gonna get a month ahead of the trade deadline, we're gonna get this guy, see if we can get on a run, and then in 3 weeks, like if it's not working, then we're just going to ship him back out. I don't know. That would be pretty awesome, just in terms of trade and action. I think it would be pretty cool. But I can't see Lou doing that. That just doesn't seem like a very Lou thing to do.
No, I don't either. It would just be funny. But Byron Bader, hockey prospecting. Let everybody, one of our listeners, know, where can they find your work? What do you have coming up? Let them know how they can support you.
Yeah, so on Twitter, it's at Byron M. Bader, and I post different stuff about prospects coming up and prospects just drafted. I mean, basically the whole premise of what I do is trying to project out, out of all these hundreds of prospects being drafted every year, which ones are the ones most likely to turn into sort of these offensive studs, these offensive stars. So yeah, so I talk about that on Twitter, different little, antidotes and things that I notice in the data. And then the website is hockeyprospecting.com, and it's a subscription-based website. You can sign up there for $35 a year, and then you get access to all the tools, which go back to 1990, over 7,000 players in there. And yeah, there's all sorts of different tools to investigate your team's drafting success and, the prospects coming up and who has the best chances of becoming that next special Jack Hughes-like player.
Just make your coffee at home for 1 week, and you get amazing hockey data for an entire year. That is the greatest trade-off. $35 for the year. Come on, people. That's just simple math. And simple math is what Byron Bader does best. Byron, thank you so much for spending some time with us. We'll be sure to pump up that hockey prospecting site and all the stats that you're putting out. And we can't wait to have you on again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Byron. That is Byron Bader, creator of Hockey Prospecting. You can find him on Twitter at Byron M. Bader. I got fired up during that interview, Nick. I started tweeting. I'm back on Twitter now.
You're back on Twitter? Oh, that's
Not that I was banned or anything, but I'm so over Timo Meyer. I agree with Ramona. You know what? When Byron's talking about what you would have to give up, forget it. I'm done. Unless Tommy Fitz is fleecing San Jose Sharks, I'm done with Timo Meyer. I'm done. Don't talk about it.
When are you done?
I'm done. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
So you wouldn't do Holtz, Igor in a first?
I want to keep the first. I want to rip them off. I don't want to give up anything.
I mean, you got to pay to play. He's
I
going to go to
know.
the Rangers, Sam.
Let him ruin his career, just like other people have.
Oh, I did want to ask you. This was and great interview by Byron. So
Yes.
much good information. Great interview. Great information about Jack Hughes. Interesting information about what Timo Meyer would bring to the table. But I brought this up in the Pucks and Pitchforks chat, and I want to kind of bring it to you.
How come I'm not in that chat? Am I
Because you
banned?
haven't written in like 7 months.
Really? Has it been that long?
I don't think it's been that long. But
I need to do a 1-year anniversary of I Told You So, Lindy Ruff.
well, just make sure you log on that you actually have the access. Just make sure you have that first.
Yeah.
It has been a while, but anyway, that's okay. I've had a ton of articles go up. I can't wait to do the plugs because and I'm not even writing them all, Sam. I wrote a ton. I in the past week. Let me look at this. I want to look at this, and I'm completely lost my train of thought. I'm gonna get back to what we were talking about in the chat and the Rangers, but in the past week, I've written 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What was a week ago? What's today's date? The 1st? So a week ago, so what? The 26th?
Something like that, yeah.
9, 10. 10 articles in a week. I've given you 10 articles in a week, guys. So we've had plenty to talk about. I'm going to have huge plugs, and that's not even including the 4 that went out today from other writers like Dan Rice and Vinny Parisi and David Williams and Jersey Joe. Big days. Big days. It's not an all-star break for us, Sam. We're going ham. But anyway,
You know what? It's not like I've been lazy. I've been doing Woo
I didn't say you were
reports.
lazy.
I've been doing Woo reports over and over to fill the gap. You know, because no Game Day Live or Devils After Dark.
Just transcribe a Woo report and put that in as an
You know what I actually tried doing? I actually tried one of these AI softwares to write my paper for me, kind of thing. And let me tell you how bad. Let me tell you how bad it was. I was like, no, Taylor Hall is no longer on the New Jersey Devils. Stop it. Because
Here's the thing about AI.
Go ahead.
Because
My friend
I
made
saw
me do
something. I saw something, and I hope this is true, but I saw something that maybe BuzzFeed was looking into doing that. Was that true, or is that like a joke article?
Who knows nowadays?
But anyway, that was the scuttlebutt. Is that BuzzFeed was thinking of doing it? Somebody tried this once, and there's so many errors because computers don't check their work.
Yeah.
Because computers, their analog is to get it right the first time, and if they don't get it right, but they think it's right. So it's, you get things like Taylor Hall is still in the Devils, or you'll get something like Jack Hughes scored 3 goals, or the mistake is in the software, and if it's a computer, you're not checking its work. It's just there's a lot there. This is why humans they're still in creative spaces. You still need humans. You still need humans to write articles. You still need humans to create movies. You still need humans to make music.
Can you imagine if there was an AI podcast of the Woo Report? How dumb that Woo Report would be?
Yeah, like what would how would they react? There's no emotion in it. So it's just analytics over and over. Like, I don't get it. I don't get what the value.
Well, that's
is.
why I hate analytics for that reason. It's just like AI.
Okay, but I've told you this, Sam, and you don't listen to me. Analytics are meant to confirm or deny the eye test. So you're supposed to use analytics to basically back up your argument, or learn to look at the game in a different fashion. You know, if you think that Dawson Mercer's been great on the penalty kill, and you look at his penalty kill stats and they're not good, you have to question, well, what's going on? Is he making these mistakes that I'm not paying attention to? Is he not in the right positioning? And I'm picking on Dawson Mercer, but you learn so many things. One of the articles I wrote, one of the 10 articles I wrote in the past week, Sam, was about Tomas Tatar. Do you know that Tomas Tatar has the best goal differential on the team? Better than Jack Hughes, better than Nico Hischier, better than Jesper Bratt.
I knew he was up there. I actually knew
and it's
he was
not
up
even
there.
close. He's 4th in the league. When you talk about like qualified players, like I think it's at least 500 minutes played or something like that. 4th in the league. The only players that are above him are 3 players who played for the Boston Bruins, and none of them are Pavel Zacha. He's been phenomenal this season, and yeah, he's not finishing. That's kind of an issue because you do need him to score to really hit it hard, but he deserves to be on every line that he's been on. And I'm surprised that the Devils, with his defensive responsibility, he's been playing really well in his own zone. He's not allowing a lot of goals.
Well, he's been hustling. He hustles.
He's getting the pucks. He's in the right position. He's a smart veteran. Honestly, the Devils should look at giving him an extension. Not a big one. I don't think he needs to make $4 million a year anymore.
You can't do that if you make a trade for a certain somebody.
You absolutely can.
Everybody tells me you can't. You can't.
They're lying to you. They're lying.
You can't.
Because here's the thing, Sam. Because the big thing is that the Devils have a ton of players that are going to free agency. But so I'm gonna play this game real quick. I'm still haven't gotten to the Rangers thing, but I will. I promise. So let's look at just the forwards. The Devils have to find money for Jesper Bratt, Igor Sharangovich, Michael McLeod, Jesper Boquist, Nathan Bastian, and Fabian Zetterlund. They're all RFAs. They have to decide whether they want to re-sign Tomas Tatar, Miles Wood, and Eric Holla. They're UFAs. So if I'm giving Bratt 8, let's say 8, right? And you're giving Timo Meier 8, right? That's $16 million. That would leave the Devils with $20 million left to spend. If you bring back Bastian, Zetterlund, and Boquist at, let's just make it easy, as $1 million, you have $17 million left. I don't know what they're going to do with McLeod, but let's say it's McLeod or somebody else who's $1 million. So now you have $15 million. But all you have to do is replace 3 players. Oh, and Igor. So let's just say Igor gets 2 again. So it's $13 million. You have to replace 3 players. Let's say you give Tatar 3. And you have $10 million.
He's not going to take 3. You really think he's
not?
going to take 3? He's not going to take 3.
I'd give him a 4-year deal with $3 million per. $12 million.
Do you think he would take that?
It depends on what he prioritizes. Does he prioritize winning and
okay?
Or
no,
does he prioritize?
I have.
Does he prioritize security?
I have to question everything because everybody tells me the money works, but there's a lot of what ifs there.
So I've given you So you need to fill out 2 forward spots. I think you can do that with Graham Clark or Tice Thompson or Cindy Gritzik or Tobias Villano or whoever. There's $1 million, options throughout, and that's $2 more million. So now you're at $10 million. Look at the defense. You got to resign Kevin Ball, $800,000. Let's just call it $1 million to be easy. So you're now at $9 million, and you have to replace Severson and Graves. Well, you have this guy named Simon Nemitz, and you have this other guy named Luke Hughes. That's another $2 million. Now you got $8 million left. Wait, sorry, $7 million left. I just filled out the entire roster, Sam. Oh, and you need a goalie. Let's just say $3 million for a goalie. You still have $4 million left over. And I just signed everybody. You signed Bratt. You signed Meyer. you sign Tatar back. So you can end up giving a little extra money to other, maybe you can send a free agent.
I'm not convinced. With Jesper Bratt's agent and Claude Lemieux being Timo Meyer's agent, you can get a great deal out of this one. I'm just not convinced yet. Jesper Bratt hasn't re-signed. Everyone's saying in the YouTube live. And you know what? And it's not that we're agreeing to disagree here. This is nothing personal. I don't do personal attacks. It's just I'm just not seeing it. That to fit both Timo Meyer and Bratt without future consequences, I'm just not seeing it. I'm just not. That's my gut.
I mean, you'll probably have consequences eventually.
I mean,
you're gonna. The problem there is how high is the cap going to go up? Because you're going to have to pay Mercer eventually, and that's going to come the year after next. You're going to have to pay, and this is looking way ahead, but you're going to have to pay Luke Hughes and Simon Nemitz eventually. You're going to have to pay, and like that, the unfortunate part is that's going to coincide with Dougie Hamilton's $9 million deal. Because he still has what? After this season, he has 6 years left. Right? No, that can't be right.
No, I think he's got 5 after this season.
Why is this? Oh, okay. The Cap Friendly did me dirty because they had an arrow, but that arrow shouldn't be there. It's 5 years after this. So let's say 26-27 is where you're going to be in trouble, right? And that's if somebody like Zetterlund or Graham Clark or Gritzik doesn't blow us out of the water. Or Mook Madulin, or one of these players. I just think the Devils are in much better shape than they're being given credit for. It's a lot of contracts you have to sign. It's a lot of negotiation. But if you say goodbye to Miles Wood, if you say goodbye to Eric Halla, which I think they're going to do, if you only resign, To get here's the thing. To get Meyer, you have to say goodbye to Graves, which that's the one that I think hurts. Severson, I think, when you got Marino, you said goodbye to Severson. I really think that was the day you said goodbye to Severson. Because he just can't. You can't spend, what is it? $20 million on the right side of your defense. You just can't. Right? That would be right? Because it's 9 and then 3 and then it's 4.4. Yeah, so it's about, yeah. Well, that's probably overstating. Like $18 million on the right side of your defense. That's still too much. On the cap, that they're expecting the cap to go up like $1 million. So the cap is going to be $83.5 million. Here's where things get interesting. Is Cap Friendly predicts that the cap is going to go up another $4 million in 2024. And
where are they getting that from? I'm not questioning it in terms of they're wrong. I'm just wondering, how could you make that assumption?
I mean, it's hard to assume things because we did a lot of assumptions, and then the coronavirus pandemic really ruined the cap for a while.
Of course.
But they still signed that ESPN deal. It was huge. They still signed the TNT deal. And it was huge. Here's where you're in trouble. I'm going to tell you where you're in trouble. Chicago's not in the playoffs. There's a couple others. Philadelphia's not in the playoffs. Montreal is not in the playoffs. Detroit isn't in the playoffs. St. Louis is probably not going to be in the playoffs. And those are big money areas. I don't know how much money Vancouver makes, but I assume it's a Canadian city would make money in advertising dollars and things like that. There's all those numbers that are floating around today that viewership is way down on the national broadcasts, down something like 28, 30%.
Why is that?
So I think it's a lot of things that are out of their hands, but it's also
because it's too hard to find the damn game on that stupid app.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't help.
I mean,
these channels are not making it easy.
yeah. So
I've watched things on ESPN, and they're 3 minutes behind sometimes. I watch things on TNT, and they're way behind. Like, I don't have cable. Like, people just don't have cable anymore. So I have to watch it on these apps. And the apps are like, and I'm watching on the TNT app. I'm watching it on the ESPN app or the Hulu app. Like, I pay for these services, and I'm paying for a service that's giving me something that's 3 minutes behind, and I had to turn off notifications from the Devils Twitter account because they were telling me whether a goal was scored or not in a commercial break.
Yeah, plus the MSG app as well. They always give those notifications.
And how do we not have MSG Go on frickin' Roku? What are we doing? Give me MSG Go on Roku. This isn't hard.
You have Comcast?
I don't.
You don't?
Verizon.
Well, Nick,
yeah, how is MSG still fighting with Comcast?
Well, I mean, look, James Dolan. Look, that guy is something else. I mean, maybe somebody could join him at a Rangers game one day. That was supposed to be.
He's going to take all the beer away from you, Sam. No beer at the games.
Well, that's why I mentioned. That's why I mentioned about a certain somebody, but I wasn't sure if I was supposed to mention it. You know, are we not supposed to talk about it? I don't know.
Are you talking about Brunette?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about it real quick, and then I'll tell my Ranger story. Then we'll say goodbye.
All right.
Andrew Brunette got a DUI. Idiotic. First of all, just idiotic. Don't get a DUI. You're rich. Like, call an Uber. But to give him a small ounce of defense, he was in a golf cart, and a golf cart is much, much, much less deadly than a car or a truck or an SUV. Like, the statistics show many, many, many less the percentages are way less. I don't know about the percentages, but again, it's very less likely you're going to kill somebody in a golf cart than you are going to kill somebody in a car when you're drunk. Still not saying that this is right. It's still miraculously dumb. But I tend to be a little bit more forgiving due to the circumstances that are coming out. This all happened in Florida during the All-Star break, actually, this morning. He was with his wife. There was a situation. The reports say that the cops told him to move the golf cart or that he was illegally parked or something. And then they waited for him for 15 minutes, and then they pulled him over. The situation seems a little odd. You know, I feel like there's more to the story than we know.
Of course there
is. But again.
Of course there is, Nick, because I'll tell you what really pisses me off about this story. Really pisses me off. No, I get pissed off. You may get pissed off at me because I'm pissed off.
Okay.
The freaking headlines. Devils assistant coach gets DUI in Florida. And then...
Did that not happen?
What's that?
Did he not get a DUI in Florida?
No, he gets a DUI, whatever the headline was.
And I know, but what's wrong with the headline?
And then 3 hours later, ... in a golf cart. It's like the cliff-hanging clickbait headlines, and then the bits and pieces are coming out.
I am gonna, because I don't want to get mad. Oh. But I worked in this industry for 10 years.
Okay.
You get the information from the police. And the police say that Andrew Brunette got a DUI. That's what the arrest report says. That's all you have to go off of. So you report that he got a DUI. You didn't say, you...
So you're blaming the cops?
I'm blaming... Again, if a news report didn't put it out, somebody would have. Right? And
That's true. That's true.
Then they would have speculated wildly because they have no ethical holding or libel lawsuit or slander lawsuit that they have to worry about. Saying that he got arrested for something, it's like if I if you found out that somebody got arrested for manslaughter, I'm not going to say a name. You know, you'd be like, oh, he killed somebody. It's like, okay, well, then you've learned that he accidentally hit somebody with his car and it was a complete accident and the charges are dropped. Like, then, it's a slippery slope of when is it okay to publish the news? And you got to put it out at some point. And if you have confirmed reports that a famous NHL coach who used to be the head coach in Florida got arrested for driving under the influence, you report it. It's very highly unlikely that he was going to be in a golf cart. He just happened to be in a golf cart. But to their credit, the second that it came out, and that guy dug on that story. The guy who I believe he was the first reporter of that story, is the guy who did the digging and found the facts and found out that he was in the golf cart. And I give him credit for not being like, Florida Panthers coach or former Florida Panthers, current New Jersey Devils coach gets DUI and then lets the Twitter brigade fill in the blanks. He worked his butt off. He got the story. He got the information. And I don't know what else he could have done. Yeah, the Twitter brigade went crazy. That is the reality of the world we live in today.
Well, I see, that's what I was talking about. See, you're educating me right now, which is good, because now I'm learning. Learning is always good. No, this is why we have discussion, Nick. So now I understand where you're coming from on that. And what I was reading,
Twitter's fault for speculating wildly.
And the Twitter brigade is what I was really referring to, not the actual reporter. So maybe I apologize for not doing that, because I didn't really know who the actual reporter that was actually reporting that. I wasn't talking about that. I'm talking like every major news organization that's just like, tweeting this, tweeting that, but it's like, what? Andrew Burnett? What? And then now it's a golf cart.
And I'll say this. Did me and the Pucks and Pitchforks writers talk about the possibility of him losing his job over this? Yeah, because it was just within there. I didn't put that out to the public because that would be irresponsible. And also, it's really not my place. Like, this isn't me. I'm not a news reporter. I don't tweet the breaking news that people give me in my mentions or that people text me or tweet me or DM me. And I'm definitely not talking about an actual news story.
This isn't really news to me. I'll be really honest.
It's news because it's a famous person that got arrested. That is the news value of it. It's a name brand that has been arrested. That's really it.
Yeah.
That again, the fact that he wasn't in a car, because if you're in a car, especially in Florida, you could kill somebody.
Yeah. Well, I know somebody in New Jersey that wasn't even driving, but was drunk in the back of a car, got a DUI. Now that's a different
New Jersey
story.
has the most strict DUI laws in the country. Do not, if you have, listen, my wife, I think I announced this, right? Well, my wife's pregnant right now. So it's great.
Oh, breaking news.
Is that breaking news? Did I not say that?
It's breaking news to me. Congratulations, Nick.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did I tell you this? I definitely
No, you did, but not over the airwaves. So
okay.
I'm playing.
Well, my wife's pregnant, so that's exciting. I'm going to have a baby. I'm going to be a dad. What do you know? But it's great because I'm like, we go out and usually I don't drink, but I can be like, I'll have a martini. Here are the keys. Thank you. And she's a good sport about it, but it's exciting. Usually, if we go out drinking, we'll go someplace because we live in Audubon. Audubon's a pretty walkable town, so we'll walk somewhere if it's, if we're drinking. But she's never drinking because she's pregnant. This is great. We could drive somewhere. We go in the city, Philadelphia, and have a drink. And here you go, babe. Take the keys. But Sam, we're running out of time, so I have to tell the story that I teased.
Oh yeah. Go right ahead.
Basically, the premise of the story is, in the off season, let me double check this because I want to make sure that this contract is correct. But the Rangers have struggled to develop their young superstars, right? And a lot of people are talking about whether they could dangle Capo Caco or Alexis Lafreniere in a Timo Meier trade and whether that would be more enticing than what the Devils can offer. That's pretty much the only thing that can happen is if they highly value those two players. What I want to know is if you're the Devils, do you think about offer sheeting Alexis Lafreniere? Kaapo Kakko has another year left on his deal, so he's not there. They have to figure out a way to pay Philip Schittle, Vitaly Kravtsov, Julian Gauthier, Keandre Miller. Keandre Miller is going to be an expensive one. Lieber Habjek, and they have to get a backup goalie. And they have $60 million. I think they might match looking at their cap situation. Their cap situation isn't as bad as I thought it was. It all depends on what Keandre Miller ends up taking. But if Keandre Miller takes like $3 million, I think they can make it work. But if the Devils offer him $3 million and he accepts, why not?
Which player do you want to offer sheet?
Lafreniere.
You know, I'll tell you what. If Fitzy ever does that, that's a ballsy move.
Why not?
It's a ball because you know what goes around comes around when you do that kind of stuff.
Hughes is signed. He sure signed. Let's go, baby. Woo. They got that long term.
Wow.
Listen,
you know
they
what?
stole Gomez from us. They stole Holik from us.
You know what? I'd do it
no
just to be a jerk to the Rangers. I would just do it if I was the Devils GM. I would totally do it just to be a jerk. To raise the bar, controversy, all that kind of good stuff. Then you've got probably James Dolan would just go crazy. He would go crazy on that.
Yeah,
we're picking on his team. It'd be amazing. And
because here's the thing: the Rangers are in a weird spot where they only have Shesterkin signed for 2 more seasons after this one, and they were smart to, yeah. He could go wherever for nothing. They got Kreider signed for 4 more seasons after this one. They got Mika Zibanejad signed for a ton of seasons. 3 more seasons of Panarin. So they really need to make a move here. And there's just something missing with that team. I didn't I hated the Barclay Goodrow signing, and I haven't even heard about him. I hated the Vincent Trocheck signing for them. Mm-hmm. I just didn't think he was the player they needed. And unless that quote-unquote kid line is doing something, I just don't – it doesn't make a lot of sense for them. So I'd wonder if they would let the Devils break the bank for them. And that's not – I'm talking about $3 million. Because you can't give them good draft picks. I'm not – he's not worth those draft picks. I don't but if you're doing something where it's a second and a fourth, I don't hate it, right?
You know what? I got to tell you, this is why you don't want to be in cap hell. You don't want to be in cap hell. You can't weaponize your space if you've had it filled up on some of these contracts. That's
but you're talking about stars here. You heard Byron Bader. Timo Meier's a star.
Well, I know he is.
So if you're adding Lafreniere, I think you could take chances like that. Former number 1 overall pick. Again, you might end up with Yakupov, or you might end up with Nathan McKinnon, who, remember, Nathan McKinnon took a long time to really develop. I know they're different players. McKinnon's a center, but I don't think they'll do it just for the conversation.
Yeah, but you know what? If Tommy Fitz pulls that off, that'd be great. I love I love trolling. I try not to do it too much, but I love trolling. But if I was the GM of the Devils, I would troll the Rangers. I would pay a $500,000 fine just to troll the Rangers.
That's something.
Yeah.
But that's all I got, Sam. You ready for plugs?
Yeah, plug away. Plug away.
All right, so I'm going to start with everybody besides me. On pucksandpitchforks.com right now, you can get sleeper deadline targets not named Timo Meier. That was Dave Williams. He wrote that right before the podcast went on the air. So it's brand new, fresh, hot off the presses for all you State of the Fan Address listeners, that's up on pucksandpitchforks.com right now. Jersey Joe, he was talking about a couple of the trade deadline acquisition possibilities. Vladimir Tarasenko, Timo Meier, a couple of the names that you've heard of. Vinny Parisi talked about the spot the Devils were in and why we're in a really good spot going into the All-Star break. Dan Rice had a really cool article. Quotes John Hines. He quotes a couple other Devils opponents about what they think about the Devils this season. So it was a really intriguing article. That's up on pucksandpitchforks.com. Now to what I've done. I wrote about why the Devils don't have to make a trade this season. Why it's not imperative. They have a lot of time, and they're still good enough to win in the playoffs. I talked about Nico Hischier falling out of the Selke race. I talked about Bo Horvat and why that trade has nothing to do with the price for Timo Meier. We talked about Luke Hughes scoring 4 goals for Michigan. We didn't even talk about that. Luke Hughes looks like a bona fide superstar as an offensive defenseman. I talk about whether the Devils might regret trading Alexander Holtz one day. I told you I talked about Tomas Tatar and the surprising stat that he's leading the Devils in. And I talked about Dougie Hamilton. He's 1 point off the pace of Scott Stevens' historic 76-point season. If Dougie Hamilton picks it up just slightly, Dougie Hamilton will be your top scoring defenseman in New Jersey Devils history.
Wow.
And I also talked about how the Devils can fit both Timo Meier and Jesper Bratt extensions in. I kind of broke it down like I just broke it down for you right now, but I did an article form, so that's up on Pucks and
And I will read it. And the reason why, even though I said I'm over Timo Meier, I will read it because I know your stuff is good.
And I even oversold it. I said $18 million for Meier and Bratt, so giving me a little leeway there.
Okay.
Oh, and guess what, Sam?
What?
In 2 seasons, guess who we no longer have to pay for?
Who's that?
That $250,000 penalty for Ilya Kovalchuk is finally over in 2 seasons. 2 seasons, Sam, and I don't have to think about this Russian son of a gun anymore. He's done.
What about Corey
He's
Schneider?
out of here.
What about Corey Schneider?
This is the last season that we pay him his buyout.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so a couple things like I hate that, or no, I think we do have to pay it next season.
Really? Corey Schneider?
I think so. Right? Let me just check it. You start the close, and I'll let you know before you're over.
All right. Hopefully we can trade that cap casualty for something. Anyway.
Yeah, we have to pay it next year, unfortunately.
February 20. Go ahead.
Heyman Quokinen, we have to pay their buyouts next year.
That's not too bad. That's not too bad.
It's fine.
Hopefully we don't have any more on the books. February 25th. February 25th. American whiskey. Remember, 3 p.m. I'm calling it right now. 3 p.m. Eastern start for the big $500,000 party. Nick, did you know that we're less than 9,000 downloads away from $500,000?
That's wild. We might get it by the end of next week.
Yeah. Remember, I think I probably texted you and Vinny that we were at like 30,000 not too long ago. It was like maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago. But we're on a record pace. And we're maintaining that pace even when we don't have any Devils hockey. And some people ask me, well, how do you do that? Like, I don't know how we did the 9.5 months during the pandemic, but we figured it out. We figured it out.
True.
Also, aside from February 25th, I know it's ways away, but April 13th at Stagehouse Tavern, Arlette is going to throw a shindig with the Let's Go Devils podcast for the last game of the season. And it's going to be a viewing party, and it's going to be a lot of hoopla. But let's go back to February 25th. Arlette is already confirmed to be at American Whiskey to sing at our $500,000 party. It's going to be entertainment like no other. And we're still working on guests. I've been hyping this up. And also, DJ Shelley will be there as well. I will talk to her on Friday. It's just going to be just one classic affair. Nick, you're going, right? You better be going.
Yeah.
You have to be going. Beer Baron's going to be there. You know, Shorts Guy's going to be there. Shorts Guy's going to come in half naked because he's coming straight from the polar bear thing that he's doing. So February 25th, 3 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to get there at 9 a.m. If you want beer for breakfast, come on in early. You can watch me set up. Just remember, let me focus because I have ADD. So just let me focus, get the stuff ready, and then we can talk. All right? That's all.
Let's do it.
All right. I want to thank all those listening, tuning in, dropping the podcast at midnight. For your morning and afternoon commute, we'll report tomorrow. Absolutely, a Woo report tomorrow. Going to do some research on the Andrew Burnett story, see if anything more comes out of it. But honestly, it is a non-story. And, mistakes
Based on
happen.
what we have now.
What's that?
Based on the information we have now.
Yeah.
More could come out. But as of right now,
Yeah.
I don't think
But
it's
most importantly, if we're going to, before we go, the lesson here is, folks, you have to, I know it's a golf cart, but in generally speaking, DUIs are very serious. And, we do podcasts at a bar. You've got Uber, you've got alternatives right now. You shouldn't be drinking and driving, and I just want to leave it at that. All right, so that's...
It's just dumb.
Yeah. Just find the sober people and tell them you need a little help getting home. And give them your keys. That's all it is. All right? That's all it is. All right. Till next time, go to pucksandpitchforks.com. Let's go Devils.